Well, good evening, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to see you, to have you with me in my home invasion series tonight. That's what it is, home invasion for all of us. Thank you so much for making time to join us. We're very excited about this initiative with Exclusive Books, who turned 70 years old this year. 70 years old this year, quite something. I haven't been reading for that long myself, but perhaps one or two of you might have been. I wish I had all that knowledge. 10, 15 books a year times 70, what does that add up to? Do we have any accountants on the screen with us? Oh my word, I hope not. I mean, I hope we do. Of course, we love accountants. We need lots of accountants. We need more accountants. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Tonight, in part, might have some entertainment, but in part, it's about us working and doing some work, rolling up our sleeves, switching on our brains, and reimagining how we can create a digital experience that reflects the physical experience that we've all enjoyed with Exclusive Books. The many stores, the many hours, the browsing. A number of people I've spoken to have met their wives, their husbands, lurking in amongst the certain sections of Exclusive Books that best represent their interests. So we are going to reinvent something this evening, and all of us are going to be turning into innovators. I'm thrilled to have you with me. A quick introduction. My name is Pavlo Phitidis. I have founded a business that works with business owners, most importantly, entrepreneurs. And the reason that matters is because everybody can be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is not necessarily a business owner. An entrepreneur is someone who has the eye to spot a problem, something that's not working or something that could be working better, and then has the initiative to go about fixing it in order to work better. So tonight is an evening of entrepreneurship and innovation. I'm also an author with 2 books in Exclusive Books, I'm very proud to say. And I want to start off this evening with some housekeeping. I implore you, I beg you, here it is, begging and imploring. Please, please, please help me make this a human event. You know, last year with my colleague Pippa, who you can see on screen, Pippa, just wave. Please say hello to everyone, thank you. With my colleague Pippa, last year, I must have done 100 webinars. A webinar is where the camera's on you. You normally have a presentation of some sort, and you simply look at the screen. You don't know who's there. You can see that there are 60, 80, 100, 300, 1,000 people on it. You don't see their faces. You don't see what they look like. And it becomes a terrible, terrible, terrible experience. So I'm imploring you, please switch your cameras on. Let's make this a physical human event to the extent that we can. I would love to see your expressions. I'm going to ask you to give me thumbs up and thumbs down on ideas that we share together. Put your name up on the screen. Let people see who you are. Imagine we're in a bookstore, but in this instance, a facilitated engagement. Select your view. There are ways that you can adjust the view on your screen to make the speaker bigger or smaller, or to see everyone else on screen as well. Open up your chat because we're going to be muting all the mics so we can have one voice, but lots of vibrant activity through the chats. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Pavlo. I'm from Johannesburg, or wherever you may be from. One of the wonderful elements of digital is that we can speak to anybody, anywhere, anytime, anyhow. And play along. Those are the housekeeping rules. There are a few other housekeeping rules. For those of you that need the bathrooms, well, you can figure out where to find them. I'm sure you know better than I do. If you'd like to get a cup of coffee, please do so. The benefit of this evening is that it can even be a whiskey. The other house rule is that you can wear whatever you want. So if you're wearing your pajamas already, or if you're barefoot, or if you're wearing Crocs, and you shouldn't be, well, no one really cares. Very simple house rules. And with that, we're going to launch the evening. Belinda, I need to see what you look like. I'd love to see what you look like. Photius lupus. I have never heard of a name like that before. We have someone with the name Photius lupus. I mean, what do you look like? I'm dying to see. Cheryl, I love the background in your room. Is that a bright red wall? Is it a real wall or is it a background? It is. Wow, I think you need to come do some color outfitting in my home. It needs a bit of vibrancy and life in it like that. Andrew, I can't quite see what's behind you there, but there are lots of photographs. You have a very, very active life where you have gathered and collected many things. And Peter, you're looking very serious about business. I hope those are Sennheiser earpieces. And David, I want to be where you are. You seem to try and travel and you move from place to place to place. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for putting your cameras on, everyone. I really appreciate it. And with that, let's get into the evening. So let's just talk a little bit about the road ahead, because the road ahead really matters. And hopefully, if I can convince you that the road ahead is what it is, and I can convince you that we can make it better than what it will be, then that will set the scene for the work we're going to do this evening. The road ahead is going to be COVID dominated. If you recall, more or less this time last year, end of January, but not quite yet, we started to learn about COVID. I've got 2 clients that I work with in Hong Kong. They were on the phone to me, telling me what a dreadful, terrible, shocking, terrifying experience it was. And we started to get ready very quickly. I said to my friends, I said to my colleagues, I said to all the people that we work with, our clients, guys, we're in this for between 18 to 24 months. And I was wrong, because I think we're in this a year down the line for at least another 2 years. This is going to be a 3-year journey. And if you think about why, just logically why, there aren't enough vaccines out there. I don't know if you've been noticing, there's an enormous battle between the EU and AstraZeneca. They put 350 million euros down on the table, and no vaccines have been delivered yet. The rows are starting, and scraping and holding and carrying vaccines has begun. Canada has 6 times the vaccines of its population. Australia about 5 times. We all know where we stand in South Africa. There's talk of a vaccine, but nothing's landed just yet. The next thing is this. Once they do arrive, a good nurse, a capable nurse, can reliably and responsibly and with efficacy vaccinate 4 people per hour. Now, we have a population of around 63 odd million people. We need 48 to 50 million people vaccinated in order for herd immunity to take place. Run the math. Not so easy. This is here to stay for a while longer. And given that, the virus will do what it does. So I had a conversation with the virus recently, and I said, what matters to you in your life? And it said the 3 M's. We want to mate as much as possible, which means that it just simply replicates, because viruses actually have a very, very boring sex life. There's no romance in it at all. The next thing is we're going to mutate. Every time you think you've figured us out, we're going to change our shape. And we do this so we can just multiply. And hopefully that way we can survive and do what we need to do, which is mate and mutate and multiply. It doesn't take it personally. This idea of a South African variant or a UK variant or a Brazilian variant is political mischief to demonstrate whoever uses those terms and words has not foreseen or forecasted or accepted the virulence of the virus in its own right. Anyone who believes that the virus doesn't do that, doesn't understand viruses, or doesn't believe in Darwin. It's survival of the virus that counts. The world that we emerge out of will be different. One of the most fascinating insights I've gotten, and I have the privilege of working across 5 countries. Did you know that London, one of the most vibrant cosmopolitan cities in the world, has lost 1.5 million residents over the last year? 30% of its population has vacated London. All signs are there to show when within London, which is a very service-driven economy, that people have started to make real adjustments, permanent adjustments, to being able to work remotely. In other words, from home. And here's the thing, home could be anywhere. Anyone you employ in London, for example, you would need to pay a premium of 30% on a market-related salary, simply so that they can afford accommodation and transport. So think of it this way, business as a whole is going to be supporting remote working too. What we once knew a year ago will be very different a year and a half, 2 years from now, at least 30% different. So given that, we've got three choices. We can bemoan our fate, and we can feel very sorry for ourselves. I've got to tell you, I personally have thrown a couple of pity parties. I've sat there thinking everything I wanted to do, all the plans I had crafted and arranged have fallen out the toilet. It's horrible and it's not fair. And in my pity party, nobody cared, nobody paid attention, and nothing changed. The other thing we can do is simply sit and wait. And folks, it's been really interesting. South African entrepreneurs saw the storm of COVID, and most of them got onto their boats and sailed into the storm. And they tested their skills, they tested their crews, they made adjustments to their boats to survive the storm and get to the other side. And in developed economies, like the United Kingdom, some parts of the United States, many parts of Europe, what I saw was business owners look at the storm with big wide eyes, go back into harbor, send their crews home, and batten down the hatches, hoping that it will pass. The waiting game is really not suggested. And in fact, a genius who has now passed on wrote an entire book on it. It's called Oh, the Places You Will Go by Dr. Zeus. I strongly recommend it. The third thing we can do is craft the future we want. Craft the future we want. But it's a decision that you need to take, because there's a secret to this whole process. And the secret is this: the only thing worth spending time on is something that you have 100% control over. So in an uncertain world, only focus on what you have control over. And what we all have control over is our attitude. And our attitude leads to our behavior, and our behavior gives us a result. So tonight, as book lovers who miss desperately the visits to the exclusive bookstores, roaming around, having our senses flushed and filled with new ideas, discovering new authors, watching people, having a coffee, selecting 2-3 books, promising that you will read them, knowing that it might take longer than anticipated, but unable to put them down. Those experiences, the smell of the book, turning the pages, relaxing on a leather couch, those experiences, I want them in my life still. I'm hoping you want them in your life too. And tonight we are going to create those experiences in a digital sense in order to reinvent and morph the in-store experience to a digital experience. So, remember these photographs. Remember reading about it. More or less around this time, a month down the line, across the States, largely in Walmart stores, people were throwing fists at each other, grabbing onto all the toilet paper they could possibly hold. And everyone turned around and said, why on earth are they doing it? And yet it's a simple, very inherent human instinct. When you face the unknown and you face uncertainty and your anxiety rises, the way to get out of it into a positive frame of mind is to act. And the action of gathering rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls of toilet paper at least saw you doing physically something to contend with the uncertainty that the virus brought. If we have another 2 years of this ahead, tonight we are going to create a digital experience suited to the book lover. And we're going to do it because I would rather be sure that it exists in my future in a way that works for me rather than hope it might be there. Because the last time I looked, hope was never a strategy. So how are we going to do it? Okay, this is the best practice, global best practice on how to create a digital experience. So if any of you are in business, if any of you are looking to create events with your family and friends, if any of you are reminiscing on any physical experiences you had that you want to recreate digitally, I'm going to give you the world's best practice formula. And normally, the McKinseys of the world, the Accentures of the world, and all these very, very large, extremely expensive consulting firms would charge millions of dollars for this strategy. So the first thing we're going to do together, and we're going to do it through the chat, is we're going to list the physical elements that we love about visiting a bookstore. So cast your mind back, close your eyes, draw on the emotions, and we're going to list all the elements that we believe made the experience in store special to us as individuals. And it'll differ from person to person. Hopefully by now, we've all had a number of digital experiences similar to this one. And yes, we're going to list what we think makes the digital experience wonderful. Here's one. You don't have to wear a mask. Isn't that a relief? Once we've done that, we're going to dematerialize the physical, and we're going to take the best of digital, and we are going to create an event that we are going to call an exclusive books event. And we're going to test the event together. And based on how the event performs, we will be able to give ideas on how to improve it, what worked, what didn't. And if we think that there's something in it, we will be able to extend this right across the genres of books, the many books, and many categories in the exclusive books environment. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Once every 6 weeks, once every 8 weeks, a special book beautifully presented, a debate, a discussion, some insight, sharing some ideas, fighting with the author, praising them once in a while. We're going to do that this evening, and we're going to get it done. So we're going to start. We're going to start with the physical elements. And what I did with my colleague Pippa is we put together, in order to make this interactive, a couple of ideas that we certainly saw in the physical world. And what I'm going to ask you to do is go to your chat function. Everyone know where chat is? Yep. Excellent. Everyone knows where chat is. And start to put down the things that you enjoy about being in a bookstore. A colleague of mine, a chap called Nick Erbell, when he saw that we were running this event, turned around and said to me, "Hey, I met my wife in exclusive books." So I picked up the phone after I saw his message. And I said, "How did you meet her, Nick?" And he said, "Well, I had a habit of going to the exclusive bookstore in Hyde Park every single Friday. And what I would do is I would roam the shelves where cooking and philosophy and travel were categorized. And I would look to see who's looking at the books. And he's an avid reader. And he would sidle up to whoever it was and said, "This is a great book if you enjoy this. Alternatively, you should try that." And he says it sparked conversations many, many times. And one of them was the luckiest conversation of my life, because it became my wife. So think about it. Think about what it is that you really love about the physical bookstore. Feel free to get the chat going. Variety, Tracy, variety. I completely agree with you. I love the variety of a bookstore. And in fact, part of the variety that excites me is you walk into a bookstore, you're going to spend an hour there, and before you know it, you've bought a book on a completely different topic, a completely different genre, a completely different author that you've never come across before. And you discover some real gems through that process. I estimate that my book, A User Manual for Life on Earth, is worth 130 million rand. David, based on 20 years of working at home and all the prep for an age of plagues, and it's free on Smashwords. Gosh, I'm going to look out for it. I will also look out for that. What were the other things? Andrew, you're sitting in Joburg. For those of you who are not in Joburg, this morning it was pelting down with rain. This evening it was a clear blue sky. It was wonderful. Okay, David, vegetable juices and lots of browsing. I agree. Baz, coffee. Oh my word, do I miss the coffee? Do I miss the coffee? Sitting down with, I shouldn't say this. I'm sorry, exclusive books, but one of the things I enjoy most is sitting down on the couch with the coffee and those unaffordable international magazines, which I should be buying from you, but browsing them along with my coffee. But to make up for it, I've bought lots of books from you. Me time and discovery time. Oh, Cheryl, you know, I remember when I was slightly younger, 22, 23, about 10 years ago, I used to go every Friday night to an exclusive books and just hang out there, watching people, seeing what people bought. And when they bought books, you could see the inspiration behind the book, or the real intent that they are going to read this book and they are going to learn a new skill and they are going to gain knowledge. Paging through books, coffee and brownies. Fatima, remember those brownies, eh? The big chocolate chip brownies. The smell of books. It's a funny thing. Hey, did you know that in 2020, ebook sales hit a record high of $4.08 billion? And did you know that in 2020, physical book sales touched just over $22 billion worth of sales? The physical book is still very much there. How it's being sold, or rather what's being sold in physical form, has changed very definitely. My daughter's a bookworm. That's Rawson Property Group. And the best dad and daughter time was in EB. And also the most expensive, no doubt. Discovering new authors, paging through books. I love the exclusive books with my Uber Eats. That was a brilliant strategy. Helping bring the bookstore to us whilst keeping us safe at home. Who loved the parking when you visited the store, or the traffic getting there? I'm not so sure I did. You should pop in, Pavlo. David. Lipschitz. David, are you offering cappuccinos at home? Send your address. We'll all visit you, David. We'll all visit you if you make a good cappuccino. So we put the poll up, and let's see what the results of the poll say. So, what people enjoyed the most, browsing and discovery, 93%. Followed on next by quiet time. Quiet time? You mean time away, time in a different place, time in a different space. followed by variety. The events, I've been to some great events. I really, really have enjoyed them. The coffee and cake. Traffic and parking. Nobody enjoyed the traffic and parking. I can already see one of the problems that can be solved by digital. Okay, so Pippa, listen, keep this poll aside and just send it through to me, because we're going to take these elements in this order, to a degree in this order, when we craft the new experience. Browsing and discovery, most important. The variety, vital. Expertise and insight, absolutely. There's nothing better than getting a great recommendation and discovering a new gem, be it an author, be it a book, be it a new category. The quiet time, they're the voyeurs, the people watchers. Desmond Morris wrote extensively about them. Dan Early wrote about them. The quiet ones, I've heard about them. Coffee and cake, that's going to be a tough one to crack when we dematerialize the physical store to create the digital experience. Okay, folks, we've got a really, really good insight to this. This is fantastic. Thank you for that poll, Pips. Thank you. Let's move on. The physical elements we've looked at, we've considered. Now let's be kind. I know we're a bit fatigued by digital events. But what are the digital elements that really work well, that you enjoy, or that you hate? There've got to be some. In fact, there've got to be a lot of them. We're all obsessed with our phones. Let me take away your phone, and all of a sudden you'll see what you missed digitally. Carmen, looking through a hardcover coffee table book, always thinking you'll buy it when you're older. I swear I do that. One day when I've got the time or I've got the budget. In the digital world, what is it that we love? What works for you in the digital world? I mean, the one thing that's been massively improved in South Africa is access to bandwidth. That has been fantastic. Prices have come down. Fiber is running everywhere. All of a sudden, the one thing I love about digital is that I can find myself in the center of the world. My day begins in South Africa at around 7 o'clock. Excuse me, and it ends in the US at about 10 o'clock. And it's just fantastic to be able to speak to people from one location without the hassle of travel and sitting like a sardine in a tin tube, flying high in the sky, grumpy customs officials, heavy bags, people breathing all over you, airport food. Although I miss it a little bit, I've got to tell you. David, I walk up my bedroom and turn left, and bang, you're into action. No traffic. I'm always on time. I can meet anyone, anywhere in the world without leaving home. Now, hang on a sec, David. We're trying to figure this out. As I read this, is this your exact routine? Because I would have said, I wake up, get dressed, I walk up my bedroom. I'm not sure what business you're in or what you do, but I have these images of you in a dressing gown, consulting with people right around the world. I don't have to spend hours in airports, trains, waiting for car hire, etc. I so agree with you. I so agree with you. The best is the feel of the book in my hands as I start browsing unknown authors. Nontando, we're looking for digital experiences. Digital is getting a rough rap. Anytime, anywhere. Surely that's wonderful. Surely the power of that is just immense, immense. You can speak to anyone. That really, truly is incredible. Beyond email, we can now FaceTime and see what other people do and see how other people behave. Home invasion, hate it. 2020 was the year of home invasion. Load shedding. Yeah, that's really not good. and I don't think it's going to improve. Interactivity, there's quite a bit of interactivity. Hey, listen, people are bolder across digital. I mean, look at the chats coming through here. Look at the polls we've got. There's quite a bit of fun you can have with digital. You can have a mix of media, a talking head, many talking heads, some video, some music, community. It does build community. You know, one of the most insightful things I experienced last year is 3 weeks before lockdown, we shut down our entire business physically and moved it digitally across about 400 different businesses, across 180 people that we work with, and across 4 different countries. And it was amazing how we created community. We did these things called round tables, where we got business owners from different parts of the world to talk about their anxieties, their fears, their apprehensions. And all of a sudden, where you thought you were alone, facing insurmountable challenges, you came across people who were just like you, but not. They had different accents. They had a different way of seeing their environment. They had a different way of responding. And the sense of community and engagement that took place in these roundtables, I think, released enormous levels of anxiety and stress for business owners. And I saw it happen right across the groups of many, many parents who were trapped in homes where all of a sudden, not only were they working, not only were they teaching, not only were they trying to have relationships, not only were they cleaning and cooking too, but when they engaged in amongst digital circles and suddenly realized that they weren't alone, that sense of community grew massively. And pajamas. So listen, I'm going to get myself into trouble. The one thing I hate with the purple passion that corporate South Africa seems to have adopted as its means and ways of engaging through COVID is through the use of Microsoft Teams, where the protocol is you have your camera off. So those of you with your camera off, I'm challenging you, I'm asking, you work in corporate, don't you? Because this camera off thing is terrible. One of the things that we learned very, very quickly is we would have to learn to engage across the screen and create some warmth and some personality. When you're in the process of business and you're negotiating, your ability to see the other person, to read body language, the things we would have in a physical environment, should you be wanting to build trust in an engagement, was essential. Getting the light right, framing yourself correctly, and putting your camera on were vital. Right across the small business environment, where 95% of our activity exists, everybody played that game. And yet in the corporate world, for some reason, the cameras are off. And I think it's because they wear pajamas. Okay, we've got some great insight into what the digital experiences are. So we now know what we want in the physical environment. We have a sense of what's in the digital environment. Oh, hang on a sec. Now, well, sometimes camera off makes the line more clear. No, I don't buy that anymore. I don't buy that anymore. Let me rather argue this way with you. Given the fact that we have another 2 years of this, and given the fact that 30% of digital is likely to be mixed into a new normal for the rest of time to come, all of us should be making good investments, both in bandwidth, or in fiber, in cameras, and in sound. It really is going to be the new normal. Cancel DSTV and telecom and get a 50 megabits per second fiber. The fiber is cheaper than previous. Hey, that's actually a good point. And in fact, you know what, David? I don't know if you've seen what's happened on YouTube, but how you can get access to some fantastic entertainment content, and most of it's free. It's because we're multitasking. Tracy, I so agree with you. When you're trying to conduct your work at home, and you're trying to teach kids, and you're trying to actually get something delivered, and you're trying to make yourself look presentable, and you're giving yourself your own haircut because, well, who wanted to go to a barber in the height of COVID? I did that a couple of times, although it's less of a problem nowadays than it was 3 years ago. The multitasking piece, perhaps it's best to have your camera off. Hey, what I said earlier, if you know where the loo is in your own home and you need to take a pee break, I think best to keep the camera off. So we know the digital elements, we know the physical elements. How are we going to craft an exclusive books experience? How are we going to craft something that takes the best of physical to the extent that we can, the best of digital to the extent that we can, and combine them into an event that might take place once every 2 months? So we did some thinking on this. The first thing we need to do is actually have a date. Let's call it an event. It is intentional. It is purposeful. It is an outing outside of the normal rhythm of our lives. It's about something different. It's not to do with work, and it's not to do with home. And it's to do with different people. Because mostly our lives have been constrained and very limited to very, very small groupings of individuals. So event-based is probably a good idea because it means you can plan and organize your life around it. It needs to be fairly consistent because if it becomes something that gives meaning and value, you want to be able to rely on it being there. In the same way that the physical store is there and you simply visit it as and when you want to. And you could do so without the anxiety of COVID. So too, if this becomes a good experience, it's something to look forward to, it's something you want to anchor into your calendar, and it's something you want to be able to rely on being there. So that we can definitely do. The eventing side featured in the physical, and we can do that digitally without a doubt. The next thing is the social side of a bookstore. Whether you be the voyeur, simply going there for some quiet time, or whether you be Nick Obel, looking for a wife. It's quite a canny idea that, isn't it? The fact that he had 3 firm interests, cooking, philosophy, and travel, and wanted to find a partner in his life that enjoyed, if not one, at least 2 of those elements. He didn't have to go and filter through how many CVs? He simply went to exclusive books. And it was free. So the social element we can definitely weave in. The chat function is active. David Lipschitz is giving advice to everyone. There's no queue in a home loo or coffee station either. There's really good insight, David, thank you. Digital, new experiences. I've joined a virtual choir of 27,500 members. Andrew, that's amazing. Put the link on the chat. My brother's really into that. He would be fascinated by it. And he recently semi-grated down to Knysna. So he's feeling particularly isolated after living in Johannesburg most of his life. That is amazing. It's amazing what people are doing. So the social elements we can definitely include in a digital format. What's next? It needs to be facilitated. So recommendations. So imagine an instance like this. Let's pick a genre. And let's say the genre is going to be cooking. But what is cooking? Is it meat dishes? Is it baking? My experience is those who bake, bake, and those who cook, cook. And the two very seldom meet each other in a comfortable space. But cooking and food is a massive genre in itself. Imagine if it was facilitated by a well-known personality, someone who has cooked extensively for some of the best restaurants in the world. They have tips, they have secrets, they have recipes coming out of their ears. They've made adjustments, they've made changes, they have a sense of what could work and might not work. They can recommend 5,000 different options. They can talk to the most beautiful books, the most practical books, the easy meal books. And if they were doing a review on 2 or 3 books, and it was a facilitated engagement, and those of you who had read the books or were thinking of reading the books could posit the questions around why that book, and what would be a good book to lead me down this path of understanding Thai cuisine, and how do we attach it to a travel book that speaks to the journey across Thailand. And through that, if it's facilitated and it asks you for your insights, and it asks you and responds to your questions, and it facilitates a discussion between those of you who might have visited Thailand and those of you who are expert Thai cooks already, immediately the entire experience in its own right becomes deeply and profoundly enriched. Through that, you will discover new authors, new books, new genres. Through that, you might discover some new friends who invite you home for coffee. David, I'm going to take you up on that. Variety. The wonderful thing about organizing events like this is we can categorize the events to suit any category, any genre of book. Imagine sci-fi, and we delve into the fiction of sci-fi, and we spin it off into some of the technical aspects of engineering for those of you who find engineering fascinating. Romance. It could be the oldest classical romances all the way through to the raunchy, gritty, scuffed heel romances that you can consume in a couple of hours. There's more than enough variety out there. If it's not the genre that interests you, but you decide to participate in it in order to learn more about it, and maybe try, test a couple of ideas, a couple of books in that genre, how better to do it than through an event of this nature? And then lastly, you won't get left behind. If you live in Uppington or Bay Bridge, if you live on the muddy island, way up north, if you live anywhere for that matter, you can be part of this. It's accessible from anywhere. Time zones are a challenge, but these 5 features could make for a really interesting experiment. No, it doesn't. Come on, Batya. Having your camera on makes you feel like you are on stage full time. No. No, it's wonderful. You should be looking at all the other people out there. It's exhausting. It's impossible to have breakaway rooms. Is it possible to have breakaway rooms where people online reading any book and it's done by EB? Absolutely, it's possible. In events like this, absolutely, absolutely possible. I like having Facebook and LinkedIn and Quora open during the day as it helps me to feel like I'm in an office environment. Simangele, I so agree with it. You know, when I speak with people in business meetings, I absolutely have Google open. In fact, let me tell you a story. More or less a month from now, a year back, I had to address an audience in the United Kingdom. They were all business owners. There were about 60 of them there. And they were looking very severe and very dour and very cross. You see, it's cold there this time. And people suffer from SAD, seasonal affective depression. It's really, really horrible at this time of the year. And I was talking about what they could do to perhaps shape their businesses differently to survive the impending lockdowns. And then one of them said to me, Pavlo, what do you know? How do we manage furlough? And as a South African, I got the fright of my life. It was the first time I'd ever heard that word. And because I do what you do, having a few tabs open, whilst I looked at the camera, I quietly typed on the side, what the ... is furlough? And I discovered very quickly, thanks to Google, that furlough is a scheme that was offered through the United Kingdom, where people who employed people could send those people home, and those people would secure a salary of £2,500 in order to remain at home, stay at home, and not work. It was an attempt to try and give reprieve to the potential redundancies and retrenchments. And having 2 or 3 tabs open whilst engaging with an audience has definitely become a multi-skilling capability. The major advantage to digital is being able to provide experiences that are not always available in real life. That is so, so true. Having the amazing Edith Eger, who's 93 and a Holocaust survivor, do an event with exclusive books online. It is so, so true. It is so, so true. It is so, so true. And also having people from completely different parts of the world do events online and giving us access to those individuals that we would otherwise never, ever have an opportunity to see, hear, or engage with. So true. Okay, so these are the 5 elements that we're going to be using to craft an experience. And let's just talk about how it's going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send and put together this experience. We'll select a book. And if I may, I would really like to select a book that I wrote in October the year before last, called Sweat Scale Sell. It's a book as much about psychology and entrepreneurship as it is about strategy and thinking. It's a book about how you take control of your life. It's a book about how you create and make things happen. And it's a book about manifesting ideas into physical reality, largely through the shape of a business. It's story-led. And I can talk to some delicious people that I've met through it, and some crazy instances and some events. And the lessons that emerge out of it will serve us all well into the future, given the uncertainty we have ahead. So we will craft the digital event, and we will make a beautiful invitation. It will have a format, which it will describe, and it will have a program and running order. It will have breakaway rooms, and we'll have opportunities for people to meet and greet. So we can weave all the elements in together. We're then going to run the event over a 60-minute period. And then after, we'll send you a survey. Tell us what worked, tell us what didn't work. Tell us if it was great, tell us if it was dreadful. Tell us what you think we could do to make this format work. And once we've taken that feedback in, if it's a go and there's a good thumbs up, we will then work to extend it across a number of different genres. It'll be communicated to Fanatics members, and they, you, us, me, we will be invited to the various events hosted by a recognized personality within the domain, be it gardening, be it cooking, be it kids' books, be it business, be it investment, be it romance. I know a couple of good people who could handle the romance piece. But yeah, you need to know, I've got some very interesting people that I've met in my time that could definitely talk extensively to romance. It might be very practical. It could be on motorsport. It could be on anything. My question to you all, if this is what it takes for us to craft a bookstore experience into the digital world, who's up for it? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is it a good idea? Is it not? Should we do it? Should we not? Should we give it a go? Peter, you in. Nettie, you in. Fantastic. Alistair, you in. Sharon, you in. Andrew, you in. Andrew, you in as well. Hilda, you in. Ruth, you in. Oh, this is really cool. This is fantastic. Now, while you're in, Sharon, you're in again. Nontando, I'm looking at you. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you in? Ah, you're in. I can see a big nod. David, you will be responsible for coffee. You're our coffee connoisseur. Carmen, are you in? Fantastic. So guys, what I'm going to do is move this from here to a couple of questions if there are any. And if there are any, just wave furiously, unmute yourself, and share an idea or two, or three or four, as to how you think we can make this work. It's a big experiment with exclusive books. I would love to see it happen. And I would love to be part of at least 3 genres that would occur on a 2-monthly basis. I would love to meet people that have similar interests. I would love to get further insight into the things that I have an interest and passion for. And I would love to have an event where I can access it, irrespective as to where I might be. Are there any thoughts? Are there any ideas? Are there any further suggestions? Have we left anything out? Peter, you look like a guy who builds things and makes things. You probably have a whole lot of ideas. David already has 101 ideas. But think if it's incentivized, more people will also join in. Send a code after the event to attendees. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. We can do some really interesting stuff around that, Carmen. You know, if this thing builds and we get some nice momentum behind it, we can get some remarkable speakers and some remarkable facilitators across the various genres. I know someone who has a deep, profound knowledge of children's books. It's an individual who, in fact, studied a doctorate on how the brain develops alongside its ability to establish literacy. It was fascinating. It was fascinating listening to this lecture that I went to, and how in certain age groups, the illustrations need to have a certain contrast to fit with the development of a brain of a 2-year-old, which is different to that of a 4-year-old, which is different to that of a 6-year-old, and so on. There's some really interesting people that we can bring to these events. Oh God, David, I so agree with you. I'm sick and tired of COVID and plagues. And this is the new world we've entered. Yes, Peter. The best way to reset, the best way to innovate, the best way to create anything is to not do so from your own brain. In many ways, if you think about what works in life, especially from the perspective of exclusive books as a business, exclusive books is not a bookstore that would survive with books being made available. It's so much more. In many ways, when I had the engagement with exclusive books, I was speaking to the leadership team there saying, for me, it's far more than a bookstore. Quite honestly, a bookstore can be digital in its entire form, whether it be Amazon or Take-A-Lot or whatever the case may be. But for me, it's so much more. It is a sense of community, whether I'm feeling socially active or I'm feeling in a quiet space. Sometimes you want to be quiet in the middle of an environment that has some vibrancy and difference to it. I would imagine these events will have people who are extremely vocal and some people who might not want to be vocal at all, but are simply intellectual voyeurs or human behavioralists that just want to people watch. I think this would be an awesome strategy for exclusive books. If it built out nicely and we developed some nice tight genres and more people started to participate in it, the idea of that you've put forward, Carmen, where we have certain codes that give you exclusive insight to certain events or meet the author or access to certain content. People watch, that's creepy. Come on, we're doing it at the moment. And can I tell you something? People watching, Mr. or Mrs. Rawson Property Group, people watching is vital. It's critical. People watching is human. We see the best and the worst of ourselves in people. Now, there's some wonderful opportunities over here. I think this is something that could be deeply explored. So going back to it, innovation always has to happen with the people that it serves first, not the people offering it. The best way to create something that's relevant in the lives of people is to understand the people that you are looking to serve, and then to ask them, what would be an amazing experience for you? Given these constraints, given this freedom within a framework, what could we do to bring a completely different experience, life for you, that would matter, that would create meaning, that would create value in your lives? And that's the entire purpose of this evening's event. It's to draw on you as co-creators of a digital experience that we could craft and put together and run with the view to learn, adapt, improve, and then offer to a far broader community. And through that, take all of us into far broader circles. Different rooms for different genres, without a doubt, Jill, without a doubt. But also room for beautiful covers, beautiful fonts, beautiful cards, journals, because I love to see beautiful books. So here's an idea. You know, the one way that we could engage with that is if we got together 2 or 3 people who had expert design capability. And as we looked at the book covers, and as we looked at the fonts, and as we looked at the cards and journals, they could talk to the inspiration behind the designs, that this draws into the future, or this draws back to nostalgia. And they can talk to the origination of where the fonts came from. They can talk to how designs in the physical world are transmuting into the digital world. There's so many things we can do. And all of a sudden, the variety, the smorgasbord that you experience as you walk into an exclusive books and you see the colors and the different merchandising, to understand how it works and why it works and how it draws on us as individuals could be amazing. I would love to be part of that. Storytellings and readings to feed the audio senses. Imagine if we had actors, people who are skilled to dramatize certain books, and to do so creating a sense of awe or a sense of fear or a sense of energy or a sense of depression. The same text read and expressed differently to create that audio experience. Have an art gallery opening to attend. Nettie, put on your mask. Be safe. Spend some money. Our artists need it. Where we could have a room for those who want to think about everything at the same time. And some sort of critical thinking structures that allowed maximum expression to expanding our thinking. David, have you read Sapiens? One of my favorite authors. Before he wrote the books, he wrote Sapiens. He wrote 21 ideas for the 21st century, I think it was. He said that every time he wrote his books, he would meditate for about a month on end. The author was brought up on a kibbutz, and he had a lot of quiet time to clear his mind and think about complex issues and express them very cleanly, very simply. There's no reason why we wouldn't be able to get him into one of these sessions. Would this tend to reduce foot traffic in EB stores? And would EB reduce their physical footprint? No, I don't believe that for a minute, Peter. I don't believe that for a minute. I think the opportunity to, once things are safe, and once we feel better, and once we feel safer, the opportunity to combine and amplify a click and mortar experience like this would be profound, would be absolutely profound. I've seen it extensively across so many different businesses. And if you think about it, this idea of becoming entirely digital hasn't really worked. Amazon has gone and bought a number of physical stores. There's a very good reason for it. The reading culture in South Africa is not strong. I think there's a lot of potential for EB to reach out to the non-readers. If you compare to the UK, people read everywhere, on the train, in the park, etc. It's so true. It's so true. But public transport is very active and extremely virulent and commonly used, Alistair. I see people still reading Thomas Hardy and Emily Bronte on the tubes as they move in and out of London. There's some wonderful things that could be done over here. I looked at Sapiens, but I felt it wasn't for me. Maybe I'll take another look. I so recommend it, David. I loved that book. I loved that book. In his summary book, 21 Ideas for the 21st Century, he speaks about the value of critical thinking as being a key skill for the future. Maybe we could invite Tony Sieber. Absolutely, why not? So what would make Tony Sieber come? If he knew that there was a group of people who were fascinated by the topic, by the content, where he could share ideas, he could learn from you as much as we could learn from him. Yvonne, I so agree with you. Homo Deus that followed afterwards was quite a heavy read, but that really went into robotics and technology. Andrew, of course, we still need a tactile and physical experience, but until it's safe to do so, let's start this. So then when it is safe to do so, this is an amplification, and it deepens and doubles down further. It will lend very different experiences and different insight and different knowledge and different opportunities to only a physical event. And the two of them together, I think, will double down on the entire experience. Folks, I'm cognizant of the time. It's 4 minutes past 7, and I always promise to try and be on time. I'm 2 minutes over because we started 2 minutes after the hour. I hope that you found value in this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you're going to come with us on the pilot as we attempt to develop this and turn it into something special. Please look out for the email that we'll send through. Please share your thoughts on what you think that final event ought to look like. Let's do it simply in order to keep it simple. Sharon, yes, we want to do it again. We want to do it again. It's a pleasure, David. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you all so much for being part of it. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope to see you at the pilot. And remember, when this becomes a common feature, we can all say, hands up, we're the co-creators. And with that, I wish you a blessed evening. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you once again for joining us.